There's one of my old contractors, an independent contractor, Leo Dumas. He was a very, very good friend of mine. And he was a big Canadian businessman, and I'd meet him at the camp once in a while. One day he said he'd like to go down to Landing and look, and I said, well, I want to go down too. Ride with me. Well, he said, I wanted to go by 37 Mile, a little longer way around, because that's where the old road used to be. Well, I said, Leo, it'll be the same price. So, and I took his picture there. He was a fine old gentleman. He said he'd like to reminisce about the old days. When he was a young man, he drove a jitney for Great Northern, and he was stationed right at Pittston. And he told me, he says, many afternoons, I've sat on the porch at Pittston, he says, just waiting for a telephone call to go somewhere. He said, couldn't even go fishing down to the river, he says, because I had to be on call, And he would tell me about some log deal he was involved in, and he said, as near as I can tell, he said, I'd stand to lose about $50,000. And he says, I believe that's too much. He said, I believe I'll fight. You've been to Canada Falls Dam?
I'm not sure.
Just above Pittston, a little way. There's about 3 miles in off from the road, just above Pittston. Years ago, he was telling me he was driving this jitney for the company, and what they had at that time were Franklin cars, and they had Franklin because they were air-cooled. In the spring of the year, they had got a big rain and flood. Everything was flooding, and they were afraid they were going to lose a lot of dams. And Max Hilton, I'm sure you've heard of Max Hilton, he was superintendent up there. So he had Leo drive him over to Sabumak. And so they could open gates there. Then he said to Leo, he said, you go to Canada Falls and have them close up there, and then go to Dole and have them close up there. He said, well, I'll go with you because you won't go fast enough by yourself. So they jumped in the car and away they went. And he said, just as they were just going up the hill to Canada Falls Dam, the motor on the car seized up, got so hot. And Max said, what's happened? What's wrong? And Leo, he spoke, well, his English wasn't really good. You could understand him and everything, but he phrased things. He said, you see, the motor, the pistons have taken an expansion. He says, and so they have stopped in the cylinders, they can't go. He says, after the engine cools off, he says, then he said, we'll be able to go again. Well, Max said, do whatever you have to do. He said, I'll go up and get the dam tender to start closing the gate. So they did. But it actually spoiled the engine on that car. Now, this is Leo's responsibility. He said to Max, he said, you see what you've done? He said, you made me spoil the engine on this car. And he said, Max said to me, don't worry about it, Leo. We can buy a lot of those for what it would take to replace Sabumak Dam. See, everyone had their jobs they were responsible for. And there was an old fellow that lived in Greenville, not far from where Babe lived, Bob Candace. I don't know if you ever heard of him or not, but he and Leo years before had been real good friends. So Leo said to me one day, he says, what about Bob Candace? And I said, geez, Leo, I said, I don't know that he's still alive or not. I said, but I will find out for you. And he sat there like this, and he says, we've raced together many times on the Sabumak Road with cars.